Thanks for coming, everyone. It's good to see you. So I'll start with a little introduction, and then you're welcome to raise your hand or ask a question in the chat box. So there's only one reality. And that reality isn't solid. It's not known. It's not something that can be understood. And it didn't come from anything. There's no actual movement or change that's happening. It's nothing appearing as everything. It's completely full and empty simultaneously. It's not getting anywhere. So nothing can be added to it or taken away. It's already whole and complete. So there was never anything missing, anything that could be separate from this. That could find this. It just simply is. You can say this reality is, it's real and unreal. Within this reality, there can be this appearance of a sense of here that arises. And this sense of here makes it seem like there's actual separation. That something became separate from this whole. And so from here, seeking arises, seeking for home, what already is. And it creates its own reality, its own individual personal reality. My journey to finally feel complete and fulfilled. And it seems like so much can happen in this journey we call my life. And it seems like so much is happening. A huge story is created and it feels really real. Feels like you're getting somewhere, that you're getting closer to this or further away. And it seems like actual movement and change is real. And this personal reality never finds home. What it's looking for is the absence of this need to get somewhere else, to find something else. It's this sense that says, this isn't it yet. And then it seems to veil that this is already perfection. This is what's longed for. And this love that just simply is never left. It was never hidden. It is everything. It is seeking. It is the sense of discomfort or unease. So really there's no problem with seeking with a sense of separation. In a way, it's already whole. It's already perfect. If anyone has any questions or comments. You're welcome to raise your hand. Hi, Matt.
Hey, yeah, so I resonate with this message a lot, but I hear some of the criticisms of it is it's too masculine or it's lacking love and compassion. I would say the way that you presented it's much more balanced, but I guess when there isn't anyone, how does compassion play into this message? And then I mean, you're not trying to give anyone anything because it already is.
Yeah.
So I guess how does compassion play into this message? And then with you after apparent liberation happened, and I was just kind of interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like all the natural feelings still arise. So, and natural impulses still arise. So there can still be an impulse to uh, ease the suffering, even though there's an understanding that no one's there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a remembering of how bad it could feel. So things might be said here, or yeah, so that seems to naturally happen. Yeah, it doesn't diminish feelings in any way. In a way, it kind of fully amplifies it to purely what it is. So no one's trying to do anything to get anything out of it. It's just purely arising. So then the body's free to kind of act and respond in whatever way it does. But in also not helping is the same as helping. It's not seen as more valuable. It's just, I think, if it arises, then it arises. And I think a position isn't really taken, to be helpful or to not be helpful, or yeah, there's just a freedom for whatever feels, I guess, most natural or whatever. And it's not really thought of. It's just,
So there's not a desire that comes up, and someone else is suffering and I need to go. That's the story. It's more of just helping happens. Would you say more like that?
it can. And if it doesn't, that's also okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good question. Thanks. Thanks, Matt. Alex has a question. Do you feel surrendered after the realization that there is no one? Um, um, Maybe what you're asking is there's just no sense of a someone here in control of their life. So in that sense, everything's just so immediate. So the thoughts and emotions and actions and responses are just arising, and it's not for anyone. It's already not for anyone anywhere, but For here, there's no more filter anymore of it sticking to someone that is acting in relation to life. So I guess it's just pure life living, which is already happening everywhere. And do I still get triggered by people and events? The body can have whatever reaction it has. So yeah, you can say it still get triggered. It can still get triggered, but a lot of the story in a way diminishes. Not that a story can't arise, but since it's not happening to anyone, like there can just be a perhaps intense response or like sensation, and then something might happen, and then it's kind of forgotten about in a way. Like nothing is holding on to it. And yeah, I did notice one time that like there was someone riding a bike and they stopped right in front of me. I think they lost control of the bike and it just like came to a really abrupt halt in front of me. And then the body just like screamed and like jumped out of the way. And it was so clear that no one did that. The body just did that. So yeah, the body can get triggered. Um, Another question. What's looking through eyes from behind eyes? Yeah, nothing. Nothing is looking. So the looking, the seeing and what's seen is the same. It's not coming from anywhere. It doesn't start and end anywhere. There is no location to anything. And that's the same with all senses. Nothing is speaking, nothing is hearing, and no one is hearing. There's another question. Are the body and the character considered separate? No, I mean nothing is separate. Yeah, you can say what we label as a character is just um like patterns and conditioning in the body, but that too isn't really real. It's not like a concrete thing. It's just to point to something. And even the body's not real. Like it's an appearance, but it's empty like everything else. So all of these words are kind of just yeah, labels we put to something that's not real. That's not yeah, it's not solid. It's just a description. Um, yeah, it doesn't really have any meaning. What do you mean by everything is empty? So there's no actual substance to anything. Um, like in the personal reality, it seems like things are really meaningful or valuable, maybe have some hierarchy, like better or worse. Um, And the person seems to be able to project solidity and actual reality onto everything because it feels real. So then everything feels more solid and real. But really, everything is empty. It's nothing appearing as everything. Nothing's actually solid. And when there's nothing like here relating to anything else, everything is totally neutral. There's no quality to anything that's different from anything else. There's a question. Did your apparent falling away happen as a result of listening to today's radical non-dual speakers? If so, can I ask which ones in particular? Many thanks. Yes. Yeah. I think I listened to so many. I think I kind of got obsessed with a lot of them, some more than others, like Jim Newman, Naho, yeah, I listened to like Kenneth and Richard here and there. And Don. Who else? I feel like I listened to like everyone at some point. Who else? Yeah. I listened to Tony at the end, but yeah. Hi, Garrett.
Hi, Suzanne. I was just wondering, you answered that question by referring to the speakers that we all know so well. Did you need to? Did you need to have one-to-ones? And as there is no cause and effect, that would suggest a one-to-one would have no result.
I never had a one-to-one. But so as long as the personal reality feels really real, cause and effect and time just is. So it will really feel like if I had, or listening to this message or having a one-to-one, if that happened, it would really feel perhaps like something actually happened after that, something led to another. And it would make logical sense that way.
Yeah.
But once that reality kind of dissolves, it's seen that nothing ever happened. None of that makes sense. Time never existed. Time was never real. The story was never real. It was just one singular energy appearing to move and play, but nothing was changing, nothing was happening, nothing was moving.
So a one-to-one session will come about of its own accord. It won't be planned by the seeker, and it won't be planned by the speaker. It will just come about naturally, you think?
I think if there's an impulse to do so, it might happen. That doesn't mean that anything's really happening because this is already whole. there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to achieve or get. So anything that feels like it's getting closer is still part of the illusion. And whether that leads to a dissolving of the illusion has no relevance to anything else, because that illusion was never there to begin with. This was already home. This was already fully complete already.
Yes, it sounds like a one-to-one session is still in the dream, you could say.
You can say that. I mean, some people can just want to talk about this, even though it's just clear that there's no one there. That can happen. So it's not necessarily.
No.
There can be different impulses why one would contact the speaker, I guess. I do want to mention that I did talk to someone often where this happened for them without listening to this message. So it was a very different take on this. And so that did happen here, but I never spoke to any speakers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Matt.
Hey, so you mentioned Jim Newman, and I've been watching him quite a bit, and he brings up like how this is unknowing, basically is a good word. So would you say like, sorry, my kids are loud.
It's okay.
Would you say like just the wanting of things to be different than they are, would that go under like the category of I know, of knowing? Like I know what this is and this shouldn't be happening. Would you say in general, like the me tries to fix things and modify its reality all the time? If there's a desire that rises up that says this shouldn't be, or I want this to be different, well, obviously or this should be different than it is, or I want to, I want something different. Would that go under the I know category? Would you put it there?
Yeah, because the feeling like you are, there's a kind of here-ness and I am. That is itself a knowing that I exist. And then everything that arises from that will be a seeking for something else. And so that automatically becomes part of that knowing that I am and I need to get to something else. This isn't it. Yeah, and it's innocent. It arises on its own. And yeah, it's very automatic.
And so would, like, if that were to arise now, would you just see it as, it would be seen as a dream and it would be like nothing, basically, would you say in general, or?
The sense of here dissolved.
So it's just what's happening.
So
it's not like, oh, that's a dream. The desire of wanting something different. See, it's not like a mental process of seeing, oh, there's a dream. That's not real. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that dissolves and then it's just, nothing appearing to happen. It's all empty fullness. And there is no separation. There's nowhere to get to. Nothing needs to change. But the body still, it seems that, at least I'm just going to say here, there is no here, there's no location. But here it does seem like if the body's really uncomfortable, yeah, there's still this natural movement to so-called change things, but nothing's happening. But apparent change seems to appear. So yeah, life is just lived in a way. No one is living it,
Yep.
and it's not actually lived. It's just purely always just what is. But yeah, everything just appears pretty normally. Thanks, Matt. Oh. Oh, sorry if someone was waiting in the waiting room for really long. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Suzanne. It's, I mean, so much of this makes sense, but I'm realizing more and more how difficult sometimes how it falls apart in how the making sense falls apart or becomes impossible from the perspective of me. And hearing you talk about um, nothing's looking out from your eyes, there's seeing. I don't know whether you say it, there's just seeing happening, there's seeing happening, and I don't know if you differentiate between seeing and what's seen, or if it's just all one seamless thing. But and then you talk about the body actually, not being meaningful, nothing's in the body, so to speak. And yet there does seem to be a locality, right, to your sense observations. I think I mentioned this before in a question to you. You're not seeing what's going on in some other state or some other country. In other words, you're seeing sights and experiencing sounds, and the sense vehicles are happening where you are, right, in a location. So how does that relate to just the feeling of, or not feeling, but the sense of just wholeness, of there being just what is? Because it's still, my thinking mind is like, but wait, but she's there, she's sitting in the chair in her house, and this is unfolding, or what's present is there as opposed to everywhere. I don't know. There's a question in there. I'm not sure if I'm getting it across though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a different country is just an idea. What's so this that it can't be described or known is just what's appearing to happen. It's just the simplicity of this. There's no knowing of exactly what's happening because nothing is actually happening. And there's no one solid there that's moving through time, through space. There is just singularity, and that's it. So the thought of a different country, or there isn't experiencing in another body. That's just a thought or idea. Like I kind of feel like that's the sense of wanting to know, wanting to understand what is actually being said, because it can't imagine that there's no locality, that there isn't any or any distance to anything. Everything is just nowhere. and nothing is happening. So it can't be really grasped or like understood. So there's no one in here saying that they know what's going on or that there's an actual experience in another body. So the sense of a me will feel like it is experiencing itself and all of the senses, and it's in relation to everything. And the natural reality is that there is no experiencing at all. There's nothing actually happening. There's no one seeing anything. What we call sight is just a label, a functioning, and there is no difference between what the functioning of the seeing and the seen is one and the same. There is no separation. There's no distance. It's not happening in space.
Mm.
It's a description of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Ah!
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. This is also just a story, but there is a real, in a way, danger to this message because that seeking, it seems like it's in its own real reality, and all it can do is like wonder and ponder about this, like to try and understand, to try and grasp it in some way, but it's never gonna get it. And it can kind of sense that a mental understanding is still not quite it. And so this isn't really a how to live life or go about life. Because in a way, that sense of here and like how that apparent contraction became kind of stronger, it all happened on its own. Maybe it felt like the identity was making it stronger. And maybe it feels like there's an actual doing that is deconstructing it. But already no one's there. No one's doing anything. So in a way, it just happens on its own. Question: is your mind quiet a lot of the time? Yeah, I think one of the surprising things is that there can be a lot of thoughts and there is no problem with it. It seems like when it has nothing to stick to, it's just like anything else. It's just another appearance. So there might be a preference in the body, not really, but there could be a preference for, less thoughts. But it's not really a problem, even if there's a lot of thoughts. The body can still do things though, if it feels tense or whatever. Like going in nature seems to lessen the thoughts, but it's just preferences in the body. Do you still experience the past? There's no past. Memories can come up. They have no reality to them. It's just thoughts. It seems like there's much less past thoughts about the past and thoughts about the future. It just seems like that might be just a side effect. It doesn't mean anything. Because none of that is real anymore. The story of Suzanne wasn't real. But if the body's really triggered, like out of kind of habit, like there can be habitual thoughts. Even that's a story. But yeah, energetically, like it kind of seems like some thoughts can be more prevalent. Kind of depending, because it's been repeated for so many years, even though time isn't real. So there can be some sort of remnant kind of strength, but it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. If I think also if energetically there's like so-called trauma in the body, which can still be there. There can still be a sort of heaviness to like a narrative. It's kind of also not seen as a problem. It's just arising. It's not happening to anyone, but it doesn't mean that it's not uncomfortable If there is no one in the body, what is it that we see when we look in the eyes of another human and there is this sense of seeing the soul? Yeah. So when there's this sense of me, it will automatically kind of feel importance. And I'm not saying this isn't like, good or bad, but there's like an importance here and then there's an importance everywhere. And you can call the sense of me also a soul. And it feels like it can see another soul as if there's an actual entity in the other body. And it can feel like it can really connect with it, feel like a union with it, or it can disconnect from it. But that's the whole movement of the me. It can feel like it feels separate, so it feels like it can get something, become more whole. And when the me is there, that feels really real. So it's not like, yeah, it feels really real. It also feels really lonely. Like, how could there not be something in another body? And that loneliness is coming from that sense of a separation. But really, all of that is already whole and complete, is already love. There's this sense that comes up saying that I'm separate from this, and it wants to grab onto some sort of meaning. But really, all of this is already just love. Here's a question. It is often said that life intensifies and the contraction can get much worse as awakening draws closer. May I ask, did life fall apart for you prior to the self falling away? Yeah, it all really does vary. So as a story here, yeah, it was pretty horrible because the sense of me really feels like it has a lot and it has a lot to lose. And it's so innocent that it would do that. Like it would try to get some sort of fulfillment from different sorts of things. Like what I could see here is like there were different ways of protection. Because it just feels horrible to feel separate. Like not all the time, but it just feels, lacking. So it will try whatever to feel okay, feel like life is okay, that I'm okay. And so it innocently does that. And so when the meaning in all of that starts to crumble and the hope in everything it put onto things starts to crumble, it's probably one of the worst things that could be felt. It's the apparent loss of everything. But in the end, you never lose anything. You never had anything. It was never something that could get something, to find something or lose something. In the end, it seemed that there was only perfection. No matter what was happening, what was arising, what was experienced in that separate reality, it was all perfection. Nothing was ever wrong. Nothing was ever lost. Nothing was ever found. So it felt very horrible, but it never really happened. That story was just a story. But again, it happens so differently for everybody. So it's just one story. Hi.
Yeah, some of those stories are quite scary, aren't they? I heard one lady saying that her husband left her and then the house burnt down. And another gentleman who was a wealthy property owner, all his properties started disappearing during COVID. And I was beginning to think, then should I back away from this message? But maybe, as you say, that may be not always the case. That's just occasionally, perhaps.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I haven't heard those stories, but no,
perhaps they are rare. Maybe.
well, I don't know. There is no like security that I'm gonna give because it's unknown. There's just, multiple billions of ways this could apparently happen, because it's not like, yeah, every story already is so different. So why wouldn't the apparent awakening story be just as different? I think one thing I can say is like, sometimes it can be really disorienting for the body, because it really felt like it had stable ground. It knew that it was here, it existed, and it was a false sense of security, but it had security in things. And it doesn't mean that it will lose those things. It just means that the security that it felt like it really had, that was giving it some sort of like relief, that can die, and it feels horrible. And it can be really disorienting, because you really feel like you're losing. The body can feel like it's dying. And again, this is like, it all depends. Sometimes it's just unnoticed, and it's not even, it's like nothing worth mentioning. But for here, like, that kind of happened. It felt like my world was crumbling. My world was ruined.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it is seen that my world never existed.
Well, I can imagine that would be a relief then, looking backwards to see that your world never existed. But yeah, I've heard Nancy Nethercott, I believe she said it was not very pleasant prior to awakening. And
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be, Yeah, it wouldn't be that uncommon if things felt like they were being shaken up. Because literally the foundation is being taken away. And even though there wasn't any foundation, there was never any real security. And this was always just, there's no fear in this. There's nothing that can be taken away from this. It's already whole. But once that sense is there, it is really fearful. It just wants to protect itself. So
Yes.
when that seemingly crumbles, that fear, the original sort of fear that was there, can be really felt.
Yeah, and do you think that could go on for a long time? It's not just 24 hours of hell and then you're free. It could be years of a gradual decline, if you like. It sounds like if anybody approaches this message, the universe seems as if it's saying, right, if you don't want to be separate, we'll get you in the end. You know, take it at your own risk.
Yeah, I mean,
perhaps I'm putting a gloomy picture on it. Perhaps there's only 1 in 100 that has a tough time, but there does seem to be fight back from the individual. And
yeah. It is often said that there is like, well, I don't know if it's often, but like for here, it did seem like the me really wanted this, even though it didn't know what it was. And then once it started really crumbling and there was just no turning back, then there was this like, oh shit, this is not what I wanted. And
there's no going back.
Yeah, there's no going back. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it all depends. Like there can be just this strong sense that just holds on again, to anything. And it just doesn't want to surrender. So that kind of experience can happen over and over. It could feel like multiple deaths, but it's the me going through a dark night of the soul or something over and over, like kind of surrendering, but then kind of latching on again. This is all a story, and it's just but the so-called final surrender where it's just no going back, yeah, then everything just merges back to absolute perfection. And then there was no merging, there was no story, there was no birth and death, and nothing ever happened.
If the sense of self apparently fell away, those very close, in one's family may be seeing a different character that they're not used to. And
yeah,
I wonder, would they walk away and say, no, this isn't the person I knew before?
Yeah. I mean, I can only go from what seemed to happen here. But yeah, some people in my family think I'm acting different. Yeah.
But you wouldn't trade it for the world. You would not want to go back to the other side.
It's not comparable, but yeah, it's really not comparable. It is totally different. because now no one is living a life. It's just life. So it's totally different. Before, I really thought I had a life, that I had a future and I was actually getting somewhere, and that, yeah, I had meaningful people in my life and I needed to make memories and needed to make my life worth living. But now it's just pure life and none of that is going on. Everything's already whole. There's nowhere to get to, but the body still just does and moves.
The body would still move and act according to its conditioning anyway. I'm guessing, but
Yeah. The programming, I think, like, some of the conditioning can change to an extent still. That's all a story too, because nothing's actually happening. But yeah, you'll never be deprogrammed. That's when the body dies, I guess.
I suppose it must have some degree of programming so as to function anyway.
I would say there's a lot of programming, but with the person, there's just an amplification of a lot more layers. Apparently, not really. A lot more layers of like meaning and hope and purpose and value and past and future.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Just remember Tony Parsons saying once that it often gets better. Often gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah, in a way, I would agree with that. It's probably one of the most difficult things the body can go through when it's alive. And again, not always, but
No.
for here, it certainly was.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for your questions.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's really no one way that it can seem to happen, because like I know someone who was just at the brink of everything, and there was this surrender that happened, and it just happened. It's completely different from here. Yeah, but I must say there was still a lot of trauma, and it was still difficult, even though it wasn't happening to anyone. So that can also happen. Yeah. And in a way, I'm not opposed to anything like doing trauma work, because it's like it won't lead to anything. It's, that story isn't actually real. But as long as the sense of me is there, like that energetic tightness can feel absolutely real. And yeah, it seems like there could be a more of a gripping on. But again, that's not a prerequisite to any, there is no prerequisite at all to anything. So yeah, trauma work can happen before or after. It seems to vary. But in a way, it can also dissolve a bit faster because it's not sticking to anything. There's no real belief in the story. It's not really real. So it's just intense energy. Gareth?
Yeah, and after that intense energy, when it does fall away, it's not a falling away as a result of hearing more and more of these talks. It seems like it's something that will creep up on you in the middle of the night, perhaps, or first thing in the morning. Not from hearing just one talk after another. It's a falling away, perhaps, will just happen at any time, any place.
Oh yeah. Everything is just happening spontaneously. Like everything. There is no reason for anything.
For yourself, was it simply a question of waking up in the morning and boom, it's gone?
Like in the end, kind of, but like not really. In the story here, it seemed very gradual. And there was no real knowing of what was happening, that something was going. It was just, yeah, it seemed clearer and clearer. No one was here, nothing was happening. This was already perfection.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Hi, Ben.
Hi. So I'm finally starting to kind of maybe accept or understand better intellectually, at least, but hopefully maybe intuitively, that awareness itself is still part of the me. But I'm wondering, as I hear you talk, I'm going to call it, because I don't know what else to call it. There is some type of noticing, right, that's going on. Talking about it's just this, it's just a knowable emptiness happening, what's apparently happening, or wait, you said something else. I forget, but your ability to your describing of what is happening for the apparent you that's there, that how does that relate to, it seems similar to awareness somehow. Not that there's someone aware, but there clearly is. You're describing things that, wow, it's really tough to try to use the right language, but so I won't try to use the right language. There are clearly things that you appear to be aware of. Again, knowing that there's not a you that's aware, but there's a noticing that's going on. And I'm wondering what that noticing is, whether it's like an ever-present quality of noticing or intelligence or aliveness. Yeah, I don't know if you could talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. So there's a seeming noticing that's happening. The brain is doing everything. So just like seeing and hearing, it's just a functioning of the body. So it's not special. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's just a functioning, like a cat. It's able to notice and kind of be aware of its, not to bump into walls and stuff like that. So that happens. It doesn't belong to anyone. But there is no like pure awareness. Pure awareness is more like a concept for the me to rest as a more expansive self. And it identifies as pure awareness. It can't help but do that. As long as it hears pure awareness or pure consciousness, it will identify as that. So that's why it's a knowing. It's like, I know that this is aware and conscious. I know that this exists because I know I exist. But when that me dissolves, it's just nothing being everything. It's not describable. It's not knowable. It's not it's not solid existence. It's the unreal appearing real simultaneously. It's empty and full at the same time. That's not understandable. So no one is knowing that. It's not really like a position of knowing. It's just obvious that nothing is known, nothing is happening. Everything is just pure aliveness. There's no separation. There's nothing to be aware of something. That is separation.
In the moments when the rare moments when there doesn't seem to be a sense of me, there does seem to be, there's like this noticing that I have, or that happens of, it does seem like there's some type of intelligence or aliveness that's just permeating everything. I don't know, maybe that's just more me.
Yeah, I would say that this is just pure aliveness, and there's only that, and it's completely empty. I don't know if I would call it an intelligence. It just sounds like something is being intelligent, like it's an actual thing, but there's nothing. It's no thing appearing, and it's empty. It's
Okay. All right.
fully alive.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Some questions. Is fear of death or fear of going crazy gone after the sense of me drops? Yes. So, yeah, fear of death and fear of going crazy is the me. And it's not uncommon that that kind of mental chatter will be somewhat amplified if it's losing all meaning and hope and everything. It feels like it's losing everything that's important to it. For that sense, it can feel like like chaos is just happening. Chaotic thoughts, there can be more of that. It can feel like you're going crazy. So in a way, there's nothing wrong. It's like, yeah, when that sense feels really threatened, it will do and say anything because it feels like it's dying. So it seems like that's what it does. It's not an actual it. There's nothing there. It's just an energetic sense that feels separate. Do you do yoga? What's the value of breathing consciously? Yeah, I practiced a lot of yoga. Yeah, I do basic yoga now, just to stretch the body. What's the value of breathing consciously? So breathing consciously is for that sense of a me that wants some relaxation, or maybe wants to calm itself down. So it's a good practice, but it's for the me. I'm not opposed to it. It can happen, but it doesn't happen here because there's nothing separate from anything. So breathing just happens. A lot of thoughts happen, or it doesn't do anything to anything. There's no separation from anything. It's not happening to anyone. But when that sense of me is there, sometimes it can want some, something calming to do. I think that's fine. What is the main purpose of yoga? Isn't it for enlightenment? I think there are just, people can claim that there are certain paths to enlightenment. So then yoga becomes a path to enlightenment. But one, nothing can lead to already enlightenment. Everything's already enlightened. Everything's already liberated. It's already free. But if that sense of me feels real and separate, a billion things can be tried. A billion paths can appear. And none of them are right or wrong. Yeah. Like, I feel like these paths can make some physiological changes in the body, perhaps temporarily, perhaps for a long time, I don't know. But it's always telling you that there's something else you need to do in order to get to already freedom. So it will perpetuate that sense that this isn't it yet, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with anything. There's nothing wrong with the me sense. It's already wholeness appearing as that. Pure awareness is impersonal. Yeah, I mean, so I feel like without the sense of me, you can call this anything. It doesn't really matter. But just for clarity, if there is this sense, it can't help but identify as this pure awareness. And then it becomes a knowing that I know that this is pure awareness, and maybe everything arises from this pure awareness or is this pure awareness. But it still becomes a position and a knowing. And it can seemingly produce a lot of feel-good feelings, like we're all one and everything, including all of the me's and all of the bodies, like it's all just this pure awareness. So it can produce feelings of love and unity, but that's still just a heightened state, or yeah, kind of a grander position for the me in a way. But yeah, nothing wrong with it. I did those practices. I thought I was getting somewhere. And yeah, I think like, let's say if there's a total like being completely lost in the story, sometimes those practices can just be nice, within the reality of me. It can just calm the body down, and it's almost a way, kind of a way of detaching, from the thoughts, from the story, from the body, from emotions. You can like observe the emotions or something. And that can calm the body down. But it's all for the me, because there's already no separation. There's no observer of anything. It's just energy. It's just thoughts, emotions. Okay, everyone. Okay, you can unmute if you want to say goodbye.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Suzanne. I
Suzanne.
love the meeting.
That was
Thank you
so
so
wonderful.
much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.